And welcome back to Bengal Bites, a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals from one fan's real, honest perspective. Woo! What a relief. The Bengals finally got their first win of the season with a mostly convincing 34-24 win over the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte on the road. And so we can all breathe a collective sigh of relief as Bengals fans got off the schneid, as they say, beat the team that they were supposed to beat. Bengals took care of business, and we're going to break it all down in this episode. Mostly try to focus on the positives because there was a lot of positives. It wasn't a perfect game, obviously. Nothing can be perfect, but we're not going to focus too much on the negatives. There was one player in particular who had an especially bad outing, but everybody can have bad games. But for the most part, Bengals played well enough to win, and that's the only thing that really matters. Like we said, there wasn't any alternative. Joe Burrow said he was going to be more vocal as a leader this week, and supposedly before the game, he said some things to the team in the locker room just to get him somewhat, I don't want to say extra motivated, but just to get their minds where they needed to be. Get everybody, I'm sure, focused on the task at hand, which is this is a business trip. I know Antonio Pierce was talking about his players making business decisions. Well, this is a different thing. This is Bengals were on a business trip. They weren't there to go take in the sights and go be visitors of Charlotte and see everything they had to offer culturally. No, they're going there, get on the bus, get on the plane, go to the hotel, go to the meetings, sleep, eat, wake up, kick some ass, get back on the flight to Cincinnati, and that's all they needed to worry about. Nothing else. Get the W. That's all that anybody needed to be focused on, and that's what they did. So it wasn't pretty, and there's some concerns going forward. There's going to be a lot of more challenges down the road, but this game was finally a taste of sweet victory that the Bengals had been missing all this year. They hadn't had any wins in the preseason, no wins in the regular season. So finally, just to get a W was a great feeling. We talked about injuries, as always. Once you get a few games into the season, start to play a bigger factor and so the Bengals were going to again be out without their two starting defensive tackles, B.J. Hill and Sheldon. And we actually saw throughout the game a lot of players rotating in at different spots. Sam Hubbard even moved inside and played nose tackle a few times, which is very strange to see. But I think they were using him on some more dime and nickel packages where, since the Bengals don't have as many defensive tackles healthy, they were using more defensive backs and linebackers like Akeem Davis-Gaither. Josh Newton was getting in there for some plays. A little bit of Dejon Anthony, Joe Bacci. I don't know if Joe Bacci got out there at all, but they were mixing in some of the other players. Mike Hilton had to get a few plays off, but Bengals were mixing it up on defense. They had to figure out something. They had to change something up because obviously the game plan that they had against the Commanders last week, where they gave up 38 points, didn't work very well. Bengals were going to have to figure out a way to stop this Panthers offense, and they did enough. So let's get into how the Bengals actually figured out a way to win this game. Going into this game, Amarius Mims, this is going to be his first start at right tackle for the Bengals. Trent Brown out for the rest of the season. The rookie, this is his time to shine. And he was going up against Jadeveon Clowney, the number one overall pick from many years ago. Who was with the Texans originally? Then he played for a bunch of different teams. He played for the Texans, the Browns, the Ravens, now with the Panthers. He's originally from Carolina area, so this is kind of his hometown team. But Mims making his first start in the NFL against Jadeveon Clowney, that was going to be an interesting matchup to watch. And for the most part, I would say he held up pretty well. Like, he looked much more comfortable in this game than he did when he came in last game against the Commanders on Monday Night Football. He looked a little bit tentative in that game. This week, he was much more confident, sure of himself, much more patient in the way that he was playing. And he did a good job of using Clowney's aggressiveness and length against him a lot of times. Clowney isn't necessarily the biggest guy, so power and bull rush moves aren't usually his thing. He tries to go around, and he tried to get around Mims, but Mims did a good job of staying patient, not getting too far one way or the other, and keeping Joe Burrow mostly clean. He didn't give up any sacks. There was no sacks on Joe Burrow. He gave up a couple hurries, but no hits on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow stayed mostly clean throughout the game. So for his first start in the NFL to go up against a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, I was very happy with that performance, and he'll only continue to improve. On that same note, one of the other rookies, second-round pick, Chris Jenkins, this was his first game getting significant snaps, and he was making contributions. He had a big play on the Panthers' first drive of the game. They drove it all the way down, got it to the 1 yard line, 4th and goal in the 1. Chris Jenkins, they run it right at him. He stuffs the hole, makes a big tackle to stop the Panthers from scoring any points. That's a huge moment in the game, huge play for a rookie. So to see him contributing, and the Bengals, last week they didn't get a single stop in the entire game. To see the Bengals make a stop on the first drive of the game was such a sign of encouragement and just like breath of fresh air. Like, whoa, the Bengals defense actually can stop somebody? It was unbelievable. So getting off to such a great start from a play by a rookie like Chris Jenkins. He didn't play a ton in this game. He only played 22 snaps, but he was very active when he was out there. I think he was getting a little bit tired because they showed him on the sidelines. He was breathing, panting, like trying to catch his breath. He had his tongue hanging out of his mouth and like breathing super hard. So I think he was, it was hot, I'm sure, down in Carolina when they played. I think it was about 80 degrees when the game kicked off. So he might not be in game shape yet. He'll have to work his way into playing in the NFL, but he looks good. He's still undersized, Chris Jenkins, number 90, but keep an eye on him. He's going to make some plays this season, I think. Speaking of rookies making plays, 4th round pick, tight end Eric All Jr., he continues to make plays in the passing game and the running game. Hasn't had any touchdown catches yet, but he's made some good possession catches, picking up 5 yards, 8 yards, whatever the Bengals need to keep the drives going. But he's also doing a good job of playing the kind of H-back, fullback when they need a blocker coming out of the backfield in running situations when they need somebody to block. He's doing that. He's doing a good job of pass protecting on the end of the line of scrimmage. So everything I'm seeing out of Eric All so far is positive. And the fact that we didn't know if he was going to be able to play at all. He came into training camp on the physically unable to perform list because he had the ACL. He's had back surgery in the past. So as long as he can stay healthy, he's looking, when people said he would have been drafted a lot higher than the 4th round if it weren't for those injury concerns, I'm seeing it. From everything I've seen from him so far, he looks like a much better than a 4th round tight end. And then not only that, the Bengals have an amazing rookie punter, Ryan Rico, leading the league in punting distance. He's got like 58.5 yards per punt. He had a 63-yarder, like a 57-yarder, another 50-yard punt that pinned the Panthers within their 10-yard line. So Ryan Rico, and he hasn't had any touchbacks recently. He had some touchbacks, and he was a little bit inconsistent in the preseason, but since the regular season's come around, he has really stepped up his game, showed why the Bengals took a chance on him, brought him into training camp to get competition with Brad Robbins. More on Brad Robbins later, but you will not be surprised at some of the transactions that went down concerning the punter position. But Ryan Rico doing an amazing job. He's definitely a weapon to flip the field when the Bengals, on the rare occasion that they don't score points and they actually do need to punt, he is booming them and really changing field position, giving the Bengals a great advantage that had been missing in recent years. And it wasn't only rookies. We got to see the continued development of some of those younger second-year players like running back number 30, Chase Brown. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. He was the leading rusher for the Bengals, 15 carries, 80 yards. So not quite 100, but 80 yards for a Bengals running back is almost unprecedented these days, well, especially without Joe Mixon. But that was a great sign. And Andre Yosivas, wide receiver, number 80 out of Princeton, he had a good down the field deep catch over the middle, not just a short 1 yard touchdown. Didn't have any touchdown catches in this game, but we saw him making a catch down the field. So that's the next progression to get him involved, getting some yards, because he's always been used in that short yardage, like goal line situations. But he's got so much athleticism and size and speed, strength. He can do everything. So getting him more involved in the passing game was a good thing to see. But we also saw the old familiar faces who are known to be the pillars, the key players for the Bengals making plays in this game. Ja'Marr Chase with a spectacular pinball off of defenders, almost like the play he made against the Ravens where he was bouncing off guys. Ja'Marr was breaking tackles for a 63-yard touchdown. Arm tackles and shoulders and hugs couldn't bring Ja'Marr Chase down. He broke out, sprinted all the way up the left sideline with T. Higgins flanking him, ran past all the linebackers and safeties. Nobody could catch him. Blazed past everybody for an amazing touchdown. Joe Burrow ran down to celebrate with him, jumped up in the air, showed some hops and got in his face and screaming, yelling. Joe Burrow was excited, pumped up. It was just like the LSU Tiger days when they then. So that was great to see. Joe Burrow had the connection going with T. Higgins early and often. T didn't have any touchdowns or any necessarily long plays, but T was doing a great job of getting open, making nice hands catches, and picking up yards after the catch, and just being out there, staying healthy and drawing attention away from Ja'Marr and opening up the offense, opening up those other opportunities for other players. So making the offense more balanced and more like what we wanted to see from this Bengals team. Obviously, Panthers defense was not great. They've been giving up a ton of yards and points to other teams, and you could call this maybe a get-right game, whatever you want to call it, but the Bengals offense was looking, hopefully, the version of what we want to see for the rest of the season. But heading into this game, the Bengals were 4.5-point favorites on the road in Charlotte, so there's still some confidence, even though the Bengals were 0-3. The Panthers were not supposed to be a good team. They haven't proven themselves to be a good team. I don't know what was going on with them against the Raiders. The Raiders must have had an off day, let the Panthers come in and beat them somehow. I guess they weren't prepared for Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, but maybe that was the wake-up call the Bengals needed to not take this team lightly. The fact that the Panthers had just got a win. Maybe if the Panthers had come in 0-3 as well as the Bengals would have been a little bit too overconfident. But I think the Bengals had just the right amount of fear of this Panthers team to not overlook them. And just the fact that reporters had been asking the guys who have come from, national title winning, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, all these different, Ohio State, Michigan, all these different schools, they're like asking them, have you ever been 0-3 and lost 3 games in a row in your life at anything? And, these guys are prideful guys and they're winners and they hate losing, as Ja'Marr always says, he hates losing. So, no, they didn't really like the situation in the locker room. They didn't like having to answer questions about being losers and losing 3 games in a row. So they had all the motivation they needed to go down and take care of business and kill what they did. But in the game, it was on Fox, as we said, and not a prime, broadcasting announced crew. Daryl Johnston, though, actually did a pretty good job of calling the game, being objective, making good observations. So I like him. It's been a while since I had a Daryl Johnston crew. But the games, I guess it was because it was in an NFC, but the NFC, AFC is just getting mixed all around between CBS and Fox. So we're getting all these different announced crews, different people instead of the same like CBS. As much as I love Ian Eagle, Charles Davis, all those type of guys, but Fox, on the broadcast, they put Zach Taylor's record up as 37-47, which is almost correct. They forgot he had that tie. So it was actually 37-47-1 tie. Very critical. But Zach Taylor, 10 games below 500. As much success as Zach Taylor had in a couple of his seasons, overall, he hasn't had a lot of success. Like I said, he needed to get that win under the belt to get the team, because it could have gone, but like I said, we don't want to think about where it could have gone, but things could have gone bad. Hopefully this is the thing that turns everything around, get the season right back on the right track. But anyway, just some notes from the game. So the Panthers won the toss, and they got the ball. Actually, no, the Bengals must have won the toss. So the Panthers got the ball first. Anyway, Panthers had the ball first. First drive, their third play of the game, Andy Dalton throws it up the left sideline over Cam Taylor-Britt's head, right into Deontay Johnson's arms. The Bengals are playing cover 2 defense, so Geno Stone, number 22, the safety, he's the safety guarding that half of the field. He doesn't have time to get over because it's a good pass from Andy Dalton right along the sidelines where it's over the corner. It's in that hole in the cover 2. Good job. But there's so much separation. They showed it on replay. Cam Taylor-Britt just lets Deontay Johnson basically get a free release off the line of scrimmage. He runs right past him. Then he's always seems like Cam Taylor-Britt is trying to make up from behind. He's always like 2 or 3 steps behind the receiver while they're running past him. And sometimes he can make it up, sometimes he can't. In this instance, he could not. Big play for the Panthers. He picked up like 30 or something yards. And so, whatever. But Panthers kept the drive going. They got it all the way down to goal to go, 1st and goal. And Chuba Hubbard, one of these plays, he was getting down there. Everybody was kind of big, massive bodies moving around. Mike Hilton was in trying to make the tackle, and he got tangled up and rolled up, and it looked like his knee got hyperextended, and they had to carry him off. He looked like he was in pain. They took him right to the blue medical tent. So I was thinking, oh man, that could be a serious knee injury for Mike Hilton. He could be out. Somebody else is going to have to come in. I think maybe Josh Newton or somebody like that was going to be coming in. Maybe Dejon Anthony, or I don't know who else was coming in, but that was concerning right off the bat. But then a couple plays, or maybe one play later, number 23, Dax Hill, made a great play in the right corner of the end zone to break up looked like it was going to be a touchdown catch from Dalton to Deontay Johnson. And right at the last second, Dax Hill gets his hand in, swipes, he rakes his hands through the middle of the receiver's hands to swipe the ball out before he's able to complete the catch and bring it in. So great play by Dax Hill. That's a veteran cornerback play, exactly what you want to see out of a guy. And we weren't sure, because this is the first year of Dax Hill playing cornerback. Obviously, he's played defensive back, so the skills from safety to corner should be somewhat translatable. But first year playing at an NFL level, we weren't sure. We knew Dax Hill had the athleticism. Question of, can he make that transition? And I liked what I saw in Dax Hill in this game overall. They weren't throwing at him too much. In the Patriots game, it seemed like they were going at Dax Hill instead of Cam Taylor-Britt. There weren't a lot of passes going at Cam Taylor-Britt for whatever reason. They were always going at Dax Hill, and maybe they were trying to test him to see if he can actually play cornerback. And teams are going to continue to do that until you show that you can. And this was a great play to prevent the touchdown. That brought up 3rd and short. Panthers tried to run it. They didn't get it. 4th and goal from the 1. This is the beginning of the game. It's a big risk. We've seen in other situations a very conservative coach would kick a field goal, like Andy Reid, I think for the Chiefs. They had a similar spot where they didn't get it. They kicked the field goal against the Bengals. Panthers decide, they're not a good team anyway. They got to score a lot of points probably to stay in the game. So they go for it on 4th and 1. And shockingly, the Bengals defense is able to get a stop. We hadn't seen the Bengals defense stop anybody against the Commanders in the previous game on Monday Night Football. So this was unbelievable that somehow Bengals defense was able to get enough of a push, specifically from Chris Jenkins, rookie number 90. Maybe the Panthers tried to test him and come after him and say, oh, there's this young guy in there. He's not very big. We're going to try to run it right at him. But the Panthers ran out of shotgun, which I don't normally like. I don't like it when the Bengals do that in these type of 4th and 1 situations, running from shotgun. I don't like it with the Bengals do it. I don't like it as an offensive rule in general. I would usually prefer something like a QB sneak, but maybe the Panthers didn't want to risk Andy Dalton getting injured down there or something like that. That could be kind of a dangerous play, so they felt comfortable with it. But Bengals, huge play for them. The crowd would have gotten into it if the Panthers had scored a touchdown right there to take the lead. So that right off the gate prevented the Panthers from getting a lead on the Bengals. And so that can change everything up. The Bengals take over, but they're backed up against their own 1-yard line. So not an easy position for the Bengals offense to be in. Luckily, they're able to get they get a short run and a short pass and pick up a couple passes to T. Higgins to just get things moving, get some yards, get some field position to crawl back out of their own territory a little bit. They ended up having to punt, but just the fact they didn't give up a safety or get sacked or give up any kind of mistakes, like, holding penalty in the end zone that can, cause a safety. So all those type of mistakes, Bengals played a smart game of football, punted it away, so that was productive. And it was actually a good punt by Ryan Rico. Got a good bounce. Bengals special teams, Tyson Anderson, numbers 26, made a good open field tackle to prevent a return. So that was a great job from the Bengals. And I was saying, okay, now the Bengals defense, they just need to get another stop like they just did. They'll be back in business. They actually ended up getting a turnover. But actually, before we get to the turnover, jumping the gun there for a second. So on the previous drive, one of these passes that Joe Burrow threw to T. Higgins, it was a good pass, and all the fans it seemed almost halfway like a Bengals game because there was a lot of fans chanting T after he made the catch. And then we saw the camera pan to Joe Burrow. He's like hopping around on one leg, looked like he's in pain, kind of trying to walk off something, like he twisted his ankle or twisted his knee or kind of looked, grimacing. So we couldn't tell what happened. Then they showed the replay. As Joe Burrow went back to pass, he planted, stepped in, threw it. The left guard, number 67, Cordell Volson, he's pass blocking, trying to hold up, and holding up the defender, he kind of takes a couple steps back, backs right into Joe Burrow's left ankle, steps with all of his weight pretty much, like right on Joe Burrow's ankle, and just stomps on it basically. So I'm sure that didn't feel good, even though it was on his, he's got socks and a boot on, but still the cleats right into your ankle can't feel good when it's a 300-pound guy like Cordell Volson. So Joe Burrow, he kind of played through it. The next pass got batted down. That's when the Bengals had to punt on 4th down. But I was concerned, like, oh, hopefully, nothing like sprained or broken or anything worse, but he was able to play through it, no ill effects. I'm sure, like, it didn't feel good the next morning, probably some bruising and some swelling going on, but maybe they gave him a shot at halftime just to make sure nothing, like, flared up on him during the game. But that was a scary moment as a Bengals fan to see him getting stepped on like that. Anyway, back to after the punt, Bengals defense back on the field. Mike Hilton, number 21, is back out of the blue medical tent, back on the field already. So just like, who was it? Lazarus back from the dead. Mike Hilton is back on the field. I thought his knee was going to need surgery, and he's already out back into the game. But as the Panthers continue on their drive, it seems like every pass, or almost every pass, is targeted at Cam Taylor-Britt, number 29, Bengals cornerback, who was talking all kinds of stuff into the media about how other teams' offenses are simple and look like college, and how the receivers for the Chiefs just run in straight lines and aren't that good. And eventually there was a play where he came off the field. I couldn't tell if he was injured or what was going on, but he was on and off the field early in the game where DJ Turner, number 20, second-round pick himself from Michigan, was coming in, and Cam Taylor-Britt was sometimes he would play out of the slot and play man-to-man against other, but not play outside. Sometimes he was just not on the field at all. So I didn't know what was going on, but he almost got beat on another deep pass where the ball bounced off the receiver's hands for the Panthers, in and out, almost another similar to the first deep pass that he gave up. Cam Taylor-Britt was looking at the sidelines, and then got pulled off. So that was, I think, the only incomplete pass that Cam Taylor-Britt had against him all day, because he was 5 of 6. The opponents against him were 5 of 6 passing for 83 yards and a touchdown, which we'll get to later. But opposite Dax Hill, they went with DJ Turner for actually the majority of the snaps at outside cornerback. We're going to have to see how that goes. Maybe it was just a one-game thing. But later in the drive, Trey Hendrickson, he always kind of shows up for 1 or 2 big splash, amazing plays a game. And that's why he wants a big raise, is because he's the only one making plays out there. But he comes in, doesn't quite get the sack on Andy Dalton, but he times it perfectly to get his hand exactly where Andy Dalton is going to pull his arm back to throw it, and it messes up Andy Dalton's throwing motion, makes the ball pop up into the air, and Bengals safety Von Bell, number 24, is there to just catch it like an outfielder catching a pop fly. He was thinking, he sees this big ball, hanging up there in the air for so long, he's thinking, just don't drop it. So he did a good job of securing the catch and making a nice return to set the Bengals up in good field position. 32 yards on the return from Von Bell gets it all the way down to the Carolina 16-yard line. And there was some controversy here where there was a penalty on the Panthers in the end zone for illegal contact on Mike Jackson against T. Higgins. He was arguing that T pushed off on him, but the Bengals eventually were able to get it in. They got to 1st and goal from the Carolina 2. Tried a couple runs, but eventually Chase Brown got it in from 3rd and goal on the 3. Didn't have to get it to 4th down. So Bengals took the early lead and got up 7-0 right at the end of the first quarter. Panthers took over, and they got a couple of first downs. They were running the ball somewhat effectively with Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders, and they got to 4th and 3 at the Bengals' 40-yard line, and they were actually able to convert that with a 4-yard pass to Deontay Johnson, who was covered by Bengals cornerback number 20, DJ Turner. So normally that may have been Cam Taylor-Britt or Dax Hill guarding Deontay Johnson, and he's a hard receiver to guard. He's obviously very quick, and he had his career high of 122 yards last week, so not an easy assignment for the Bengals defensive backs, but the Panthers were able to pick up that 4th and 3. They took good chances, like well-calculated risks the Panthers did throughout the game. I give them credit for a well-coached game. They didn't necessarily have very good players in terms of talent and skill out on the field, but they did everything they could from a coaching aspect to give themselves a chance to win the game. It seemed like I didn't see obvious coaching mistakes. There's a couple of questionable timeouts they used at the end of the half that seemed like it gave the Bengals even more time to score a touchdown against them. But otherwise, mostly for a coach in his first season, Dave Canales is his rookie season. So rookie head coach going up against Zach Taylor, who's in his season number 5 or 6, I think season 6 at this point. So it was surprisingly an even coaching battle considering how much experience Zach Taylor had. Panthers kept going. There was some bad tackling or bad taking of angles to take a tackle by Geno Stone. Gave up a big run by Chuba Hubbard, got them down near the goal line, and then Chuba Hubbard ran it in for a similar 3-yard touchdown, similar to Chase Brown, just kind of up the middle for 3 yards. Made it 7-7 Panthers with 9.5 minutes left to go. 7-7 tie with 9.5 minutes left to go. Bengals take over, and on this drive, the big play that everybody will see on the highlights is they had 3rd and 3 from their own 37-yard line. Joe Burrow drops back. Good protection, like it is most of the day. Joe Burrow doesn't have to worry about anybody in his face. He's able to find Jamar Chase wide open across the middle of the field in the zone. He's kind of running a deep 15-yard in, and he catches the pass right around the logo at the 50-yard line. And I think there's a safety who comes in, and maybe Jeremy Chin tries to just lower a shoulder instead of wrapping up and making an actual tackle on Jamar Chase. He goes for a big hit. I don't know why, but instead of, putting his arms out, he just kind of puts a shoulder in Jamar Chase. That doesn't bring him down because he's way too strong, and Jamar Chase. He's not, tall, but he's built very thickly. He's like a, kind of like a fire hydrant almost. So you can't just kind of put a shoulder into Jamar and knock him over. Then number 40, one of the linebackers, came in. I don't know what he tried to do. He just kind of he wrapped his arms around him, but it was kind of more like a hug on Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase just kind of like shrugged him off. Then somebody else came in diving at Jamar's feet. He just kind of stepped out of the way of that. No big deal. Then he switched the ball from his right hand to his left hand, took off up the left sideline around T. Higgins, his teammate. And so T. Higgins, number 5, is having a convoy all the way up the left sideline for Jamar Chase as he takes off with all the Panthers pursuing from behind. But he is way too fast for all those guys. Outruns all of them to the end zone for the touchdown. Joe Burrow comes sprinting down after Jamar Chase. This is where he's like celebrating with him. So huge moment. Bengals go back up on top, 14-7. And that only took 2 minutes off the clock. So there's 7 minutes left to go in the second quarter. Panthers took over in the next drive at their own 30, as they did, I think, pretty much the entire game. I don't think the Bengals gave the Panthers an opportunity to return any of these kicks. All the kicks were touchbacks into the end zone, especially because the Commanders had like a 65-yard return in the last game to Austin Eckler. So I think the Bengals had enough of that. I don't know who the Panthers had returning, if it was somebody who is especially dangerous as a returner, but maybe the Bengals had enough, because that was one of the factors that caused the Bengals to lose the game, was that long kickoff return. So, they can't be losing games because of kickoff returns. So maybe they're just one of these teams that's going to wave the white flag and say, we're just going to kick it into the end zone. You guys can take it at the 30, and we'll hope that our defense can stop somebody. But Panthers came out. They got a penalty on 3rd and 5, false start on their own offensive lineman. So Panthers had 3rd and 10. It was looking good for the Bengals defense to get a stop. And we saw the pass go off to the left sideline on Cam Taylor-Britt. Very familiar. This is a theme. Cam Taylor-Britt pass up the left sideline. He gets this diving interception and runs it back, but there's a flag. Like almost as the ball is in the air, you can see the flag coming out, and it's holding on Cam Taylor-Britt before the pass was thrown. So it's an automatic first down, 5-yard penalty, but an automatic first down. So it would have been, they had a 3rd and 10 if they could have got the stop there, got the ball back. Instead, Panthers keep the ball, get the first down. They're able to keep driving it all the way down the field with Miles Sanders running it. A lot of passes from Andy Dalton. They were able to pick up another 3rd and 3 short pass to Deontay Johnson for 5 yards with DJ Turner guarding him. Similar, DJ Turner, tough to guard in short space, but Bengals DBs are not able to make a play on the ball either. And Andy Dalton, for the most part, looked good. There's a couple odd misfires from the Red Rifle. There's one pass where maybe he didn't like whatever happened at the last second. He kind of pump faked it and brought it down, and then it was like he didn't know what to do, so he had to kind of run around. But overall, he was pretty accurate and decisive. Again, much more competent than Bryce Young ever. And as a Panthers fan, I'm sure it was a breath of fresh air to see like an actual professional NFL quarterback on the field, and as opposed to what they had been seeing. But Dalton is able to drive the Panthers all the way down, gets it to 1st and goal from the 8, and they hit Xavier Legette, their rookie, for an 8-yard touchdown catch on a crossing route. Geno Stone not able to get a hand in and break up the pass. They did a good job of passing over the coverage. Daryl Johnson on Fox pointed out how Von Bell passed it over to Geno Stone, the other safety, but he wasn't able to react in time to get there. So touchdown. I think that was Legette's first touchdown he ever scored in the NFL, and he did some kind of weird, like, riding a horse celebration where he just, like, started galloping like he was riding an imaginary horse all the way back to the sidelines. I don't know what was going on with that, but he's one of those country guys. So maybe that's what they do when they score touchdowns down there in North Carolina. But that put it back to 14-14 tie. So back and forth game here early. Not really what I had anticipated out of the old Bengals Panthers, but I did anticipate kind of a high scoring game because both these defenses were not very good coming into this game. So I guess it wasn't that much of a surprise, but it's a little bit concerning that it was so close. But Bengals, they have a minute left in the second half, and they're going to get the ball to start the second half. Minute left to go in the second quarter. They're going to get the ball to start the second half as well. But we all know Zach Taylor loved to get what he, in his mind, he thinks is the extra momentum of if you score at the end of the first half and you score at the beginning of the second half. I guess he thinks that the points count extra or something. But this is exactly what the Bengals are able to do, aided mostly due to the fact of a 29-yard pass down the middle, 1st and 10 at their own 50 or at the 50-yard line. They hit Andre Yosivas, number 80. It's a deep route over the seam where it looks, Andre's got to know he's going to take a big hit. It's actually Nick Scott, the former Bengal, coming in from safety for the Panthers. He's not able to make a play on the ball, but he hits Andre right as he's coming down, knocks the wind out of Andre, but he's able to hang on to the ball, complete the catch, and Bengals, since they don't have a lot of time left, everybody hurries up and spikes the ball. So Andre doesn't have to come out of the game due to injury. He kind of just, he's crumpled up, but he's still standing up while they're spiking the ball. And then he kind of you can see him pulling his arms back over his head, trying to catch his air. So it was a great job. And that's one of the things I had questions about. He proved it to me on that play of, he's an Ivy League guy. I'm not saying he's, not as tough as some of these other guys, but I wanted to see, could he make a play like that? Could he go down the field, make a tough catch in traffic, and pop up? And he showed that to me. So hopefully they're able to get him involved in similar. I don't want him to get hit, but I'm just saying he showed that he can, if he gets hit, he can pop up from it. But this was another tough sequence for the Panthers defensive backs. 2 plays in a row, they got called for a defensive pass interference on T. Higgins, Mike Jackson, and J.C. Horn, both at the 21, and then they had 1st and goal at the 4. Another defensive pass interference. So Bengals had it 1st and goal from the 1. Actually, it took them 3 plays to score because they had incomplete pass to Jamar Chase, where Joe Burrow had Mike Gesicki wide open, running right in front of his face, and for whatever reason, he didn't throw him the ball. I think he was too focused in on getting another touchdown to Jamar Chase, his buddy, or something, that he was only going to throw it there at that one receiver. But he had options that were open. We've seen that a couple times where Joe Burrow's not seeing the full field. He's only reading half the field. He won't look at the left, he'll only look at the right, or vice versa. And sometimes there will be guys who are open on the other half of the field if we just look over there and throw it, but whatever. So a couple missed opportunities. They got 3rd and goal from the 1-yard line with 6 seconds left to go and no timeouts. So they had to either get out of bounds, get an incomplete pass, or score a touchdown within those 6 seconds. And Joe Burrow decided to throw it behind the line of scrimmage to Zach Moss out of the backfield. So he caught it outside of the goal line and still had a lot of ground to make up. And it looked like he was going to get tackled short. It would have been a disaster if he had got tackled right there, because the Bengals had no way to stop the clock. They would have not been able to score any points. But luckily, the turf monster reared its ugly head and everybody started, slipping on the turf. So Zach Moss, the Bengals running back, he caught the ball, then he slipped, but he wasn't down yet. And then the defender coming in, he slipped. So everybody was slipping on the artificial turf out there. This is the only time where it was a good thing that they had artificial turf, because that allowed the Bengals to score a touchdown. Most of the time, I hate the turf. And if you're a Panthers fan, I'm sure you don't like the turf in this situation. But it allowed Zach Moss to avoid the tackle, stay up just long enough to dive into the end zone right before the first half ended to give the Bengals the lead going into the locker room, up 21-14. At halftime, looking at the stats, it's a little bit surprising to see the Bengals only had 11 yards of rushing on 6 rushing attempts. But just kind of the way the game had played out, they didn't have a lot of possessions. They were throwing it. They had the long pass to Jamar Chase, 63 yards. The long pass to Andre Iosivas for almost 30 yards. So they didn't have a ton of opportunities to run. But having the lead coming out, it was going to be important to be able to run the football. And that's exactly what the Bengals were able to do in the second half. They were able to take more control of the game. They didn't leave no doubt, as they would say, but they did enough to, they put the game mostly away. They didn't quite slam the door shut, but they did. But let's get into the second half. So after halftime, Bengals had the ball, like they said, and they were able to drive it down and score another back-to-back touchdown to extend their lead to 28-14. 2-touchdown lead. Things are looking good for the Bengals. I'm looking back at the drive here. No huge plays, but no negative plays on this drive either. And they never got into a third down at all. It was first down, second down, first down, second down, first down. So just first down after first down. They had Chase Brown off left tackle for 20 yards. Joe Burrow picked up a first down scrambling. So they had some passes to Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, spreading the ball around. Eric All got involved. So this is actually a good Chase Brown drive, and he finished it off with a 1-yard touchdown. So this was one of the few drives where Chase Brown was the featured back, first and second down, instead of Zach Moss. And he proved it was a good decision to put him into the game. Every time Chase Brown gets in the game, he takes advantage of the opportunities. He runs hard. He has explosiveness, bursts. So I think we're going to see more and more Chase Brown as the season continues. And after the Bengals kicked off to the Panthers, they take over at their own 30, and they go 3 and out. I think they had a critical drop, and just not a great drive for the Panthers, so they had to punt it away. Charlie Jones, 3-yard return. I don't know how long Charlie Jones is going to be the Bengals punt returner, because he is always going sideways, backwards. He's never gaining yardage, or not enough yardage. Like, he had the fumble. Obviously, everybody makes mistakes, but he's not doing anything. When he gets the opportunity, he needs to make something happen with it, or they're going to find somebody who can. Because right now, the trend with Charlie Jones, every time he gets the ball, it seems like he's not doing enough with it. So we'll have to see. But they have so much patience with their returners, even if they don't do anything. And I'm looking Travion Williams in this game, I'm thinking of it, because as opposed to the Bengals, so every time the Bengals kicked off, they would just kick it into the end zone, not give the Panthers a chance to return it all. Travion had 3 returns in this game for 54 yards, average of 18, long of 22. And a lot of times, Travion wasn't getting to the 30-yard line. So the Panthers were winning in that scenario. Chase Brown was a little bit better returning. He had 2 returns for an 52, average of 26. So 8 yards more per return than Travion. But again, if I was a team and I had a chance to kick it to somebody, I would definitely kick it to Travion if they're just going to put him out there. And he kind of not really muffed one of the returns, but had a difficult time catching the ball a couple times. So that kind of delayed his return. And I don't see the same burst and athleticism and touchdown scoring potential that I see in Chase Brown that I would in Travion. So I don't know. Like I said, they leave Travion out there. They leave Charlie Jones out there. They need to start making plays to prove to me why they keep putting them out there. But it's not my decision. I'm not a coach. I don't know what are the better options. Like I said, put Jermaine Burton out there. I think he would probably be a better, more explosive, dynamic, athletic option than some of these other guys. But what do I know? But to Charlie Jones' credit, he did have that 1 touchdown last year. That was pretty good. But it was mostly good blocking. But Travion's been in the league for 6 years, and he has exactly 0 touchdowns. So I don't feel like I'm way out of line saying that Travion doesn't have a lot of potential. But anyway, Bengals, after the unspectacular Charlie Jones return, they get the ball back. I think they go 3 and out, or they didn't go. 3 and out. They tried a pass deep to T. Higgins along the left sideline. It looked like T. Higgins kind of came up. I couldn't tell if he was limping or kind of had a little hitch in his giddy up there, but he was all smiles on the sideline after that. So I was just concerned every time I see T. Higgins, and he's had the hamstring issues, so I didn't know what was going on there. This brought out Ryan Rico, Bengals punter, and he hit a 63-yard punt. The announcers were commenting about how it was a booming, amazing punt, high hang time. And not only was it long, but it was along the right sideline, almost all the way out of bounds. So all on a diagonal, 63 yards, and no return. But 1 yard return, Tyson Anderson tackled him at the Carolina 17. So inside the 20 for the Bengals, or for the Panthers to take over. So great job by the Bengals punter, pinning them deep. Panthers, at this point, they've got a long way to go to come back. They got 1 first down and then got to 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15. They ran a pass to Miles Sanders that picked up 12 yards. So they got to 4th and 3 from their own 35-yard line. And they showed the coach, and he was clapping them up. He's like, okay, guys, come off the field. And I was kind of surprised because 3rd and 15, they're down at that point by 21 or something like that. Or, no, 14. So it's, down 14 because it's 28-14 at that point. So 2 scores, and it's getting towards the 4th quarter. I was surprised that the Panthers sent out the punt team, because in that situation, normally you'd want to go for it. But I guess they fooled me, stupid me. Panthers decided to go for the fake. So they sent out the punt team, but then the punter, Johnny Hecker, he tried to throw a pass to Felipe Franks, but number 33 for the Bengals, Dejon Anthony, comes out of nowhere at the last second, similar almost to Dax Hill, a defensive back breaking up a pass. He's able to swat the ball away out of the receiver's hands before he can complete it. That would have been a big conversion for the Panthers, but luckily for the Bengals, they stop them and get the ball back. So that was a huge play that could have potentially allowed the Panthers to stay in the game. This gives the Bengals offense an opportunity to come back on the field with a short field. So they take over at the Panthers' 35-yard line. That puts the Panthers defense in a tough situation. But fortunately for them, they kind of get bailed out by a Cordell Volson holding penalty on a nice run from Zach Moss. It would have gone for 19 yards, but Volson gets called for holding, brings it all the way back, puts the Bengals into 3rd and 23. They are able to pick up 10 yards to get to 4th and 13, but they have to kick a field goal. It's a 56-yard field goal from Evan McPherson, and he makes it look easy from 56, right down the middle, plenty of leg. It would have been good from 60 plus. So the Bengals extend their lead to 17. They go up 31-14 at that point, and there's 3 minutes left to go in the 3rd quarter. But when the Panthers get the ball back, Chuba Hubbard breaks a run off left guard for 38 yards before Geno Stone is able to push him out. It's kind of similar to the Austin Eckler touchdown from the Commanders that went for 24 yards last week. Bengals run defense is kind of nowhere to be found on that right side for the Bengals defense. Trey Hendrickson, Cam Taylor-Britt, Von Bell all kind of just get blocked up, don't fight off the blocks to get in the way, make a tackle. Logan Wilson's getting blasted by one of the offensive linemen out of the way. So it was a good run for the Panthers, not so good for the Bengals. And then a couple of plays later, Panthers are able to hit a bullet pass up the seam on the left sideline to Deontay Johnson. Andy Dalton makes a nice play over the linebackers in front of Cam Taylor-Britt, who gets shaken, isn't able to make a play on the ball. Deontay Johnson gets like 2 or 3 steps of separation away from Cam Taylor-Britt, and that gives the Panthers signs of life. They're back within 10 points, and that drive only took 2 minutes. So there's 1 minute left to go, still in the 3rd quarter. Panthers down by 10, 31-21. At this point in the game, Bengals, they got a 10-point lead heading into the 4th quarter. They just want to shorten the game. Get the running game going. Keep the clock running. Don't let the ball touch the ground. No incomplete passes. Just everybody stay in bounds and just try to run the clock out for the rest of the game. This is where we saw some vintage, classic Joe Burrow magic in the back of the pocket. There's one play where Joe Burrow, he goes back. I think he started under center, or maybe it was just Ted Karras. Somehow Ted Karras got his feet tangled up with somebody right at the beginning of the play and fell flat on his back. And so it was kind of a jailbreak, defenders running straight at Joe Burrow from all directions, straight to the middle, because the Bengals, integrity had broken down, kind of like if the dam burst, all the water's going to come flowing through. That's kind of what it looked like for the Panthers defense. Everybody was just all of a sudden flowing through. Joe Burrow somehow was able to dance around, twirl and spin and fake, get away from all these guys, and find Zach Moss for a 21-yard gain where it seemed like he was going to get sacked for sure. And that was one of the things that had been missing from the Joe Burrow of the first couple of games, is where he was taking sacks where he didn't make these kind of spectacular, magical escapes Houdini that we had come to know and love. He was kind of looking like an ordinary guy getting sacked. And so this was finally like, oh yeah, this is the guy we expected to see, making amazing plays happen, picks up the first down, keeps the drive alive. So that was great to see. It was on that play that the Panthers starting middle linebacker, Shaq Thompson, kind of had a non-contact injury. Daryl Johnson, the announcer, kind of called it out, where those are the scary ones where he just kind of halfway through the play stopped running and just started limping. He didn't look like he could really play anymore. He went to the Blue Medical Tent. They listed him out with a heel injury, and when they say heel, obviously your Achilles is down by your heel, and that's what it's looking like. After the game came out, he has a torn Achilles tendon, so not good for him, but that was fortunate for the Bengals, because that meant the Panthers defense, especially in the middle, was even weaker for the rest of the game. The Panthers also, other starting linebacker Josie Jewell went out later in the game with a groin and quad injury. So Panthers were playing with a couple of backup linebackers for the most part. And that's kind of part of the reason why they're able to be so effective running the ball, is because some of the better players for the Panthers weren't available anymore. Later on this same drive, T. Higgins, his aggressiveness kind of came back to bite him. So already in this game, there had been 3 defensive pass interference penalties that had gone for the Bengals, where Panthers got called for pushing T. Higgins. This time, it goes against T. Higgins. He gets called for pushing off on a catch on the left sideline. So kind of maybe a makeup call, or he's been getting away with it a lot. Finally, one goes against the Bengals. Later, 3rd and 5 from the Panthers' 30-yard line. So they're in field goal range. They're not quite in the red zone territory, but they're just on the verge of the red zone, or the gold zone, or whatever you want to call it. Joe Burrow scrambling around again, doing some of his Joe Burrow magic. He's looking around, throws down the field. The camera pans. He's got a wide open Carolina Panther. Oh, that's not the right color jersey. And just a guy standing right there to pick it off. And then the Panthers get a good return on this. I'm going to have to scroll down here. How far did he return that? So Xavier Woods returned it 33 yards to the Panthers' 41. I thought he was trying to... Jamar Chase made a good tackle, but I thought he was trying to take it all the way for a pick 6. But it was shocking, because it was like, oh no, that was a terrible decision by Joe Burrow. How could he make a stupid play like that? But when you went back and watched it on the replay, you could see Jamar Chase was breaking across the middle of the field, and then at the last second, he stopped and changed course, went the opposite direction back to the outside. But Joe Burrow threw it like he was going to continue on the same path to the inside of the field. And it was kind of similar, or maybe what Jamar was thinking was similar to a couple years ago, or his rookie season, when they scored the touchdown late in the game, sent it to overtime against the 49ers. He scrambled around at the back of the end zone, broke it back to the outside. But this is kind of a different situation. I agree with Daryl Johnston on the Fox broadcast, and I agree with Joe Burrow. What he was saying was he would expect Jamar to continue the route. But I think even if he had continued the route, obviously the Panthers defender would have had a chance to make a play on the pass because he was standing right there anyway. So it was kind of a risky, it wasn't a wide open pass to be thrown, for sure. So in that situation where the Bengals were already set up in field goal range, they were going to get points. The worst thing they could have done was turn the ball over, and that's exactly what happened. So after the game, Joe Burrow said it was just a miscommunication between him and Jamar, and he didn't have any regrets, wouldn't change what he did, wouldn't change the decision. I get where he's coming from, but like I said, given the circumstances, that's the worst case scenario. So if you're doing something that allows the worst case scenario to happen, you might want to reconsider that choice. But I'm not Joe Burrow. I don't make those decisions. Didn't end up killing the Bengals in this situation. And actually, the Panthers, when they got the ball back, they had I think they had a critical drop. They had a few drops throughout the game. But this was also a critical moment in the game because Trey Hendrickson went down with an injury. So the Panthers, they drove it across midfield, got it to the Bengals 37. Then Trey Hendrickson, he was rushing in and looked like he got it caught at a weird angle, hit his head and neck into the side of Sam Hubbard. And they brought out the medical team and everything. They went to commercial break. He was down. When they came back from a commercial break, Trey Hendrickson was still down on the ground. So that was surprising. Usually they come back from the commercial break. Okay, so-and-so, they're up, they're moving around, everything, the game's about to continue. Trey Hendrickson was still laying on the ground. Finally, he sat up, started moving around, walked off under his own power, but he was obviously favoring his right shoulder. He was kind of holding it close to his side, obviously in some kind of discomfort. Didn't know if it was like a collarbone or what happened, but I told my friend right from the beginning, the way that they were dealing with it, just taking so much time and being so cautious, made you think it was some kind of a head and or neck injury, because whenever there's a head or neck, they always want to be extra cautious. Don't move them, don't touch them, just in case. And so given all that, I thought it was most likely it was going to be a stinger, what they call stinger injury. It's kind of like when you hit your funny bone on your elbow, except for it's in your neck. You get kind of a pinched nerve, and it just kind of, you get some numbness, some stinging, some pain, burning sensation in your arm. I've never had it personally. I'm sure it's not very fun to deal with, but that sounds like what Trey Hendrickson had. So I don't know if he came back or if he was out for the rest of the game, but that's going to be something to monitor going forward. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson is one of those players they definitely can't afford to lose for any significant amount of time. But it was towards the end of this game, so it wasn't too much of a blow, but Cedric Johnson and some of those other younger guys are going to have to come in and take over for Trey Hendrickson as he's out. Thankfully, even without Trey Hendrickson in the lineup, the Bengals are able to stop him. I think that was another incomplete pass where the Panthers dropped it. Could have kept the drive going, but they didn't, and settled for a 48-yard field goal. That got it back within, 7 or 10? Hold on. Back within 7. Yeah. So after the field goal, Bengals still up 31-24. And there's about 7.5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. So again, the Bengals' objective is just to run more time off of the clock. They are able to do that successfully, run the ball. No pass attempts on this one. So right after Joe Burrow has been throwing the ball, and everybody loves, let Joe Burrow cook. Well, in this situation, Joe Burrow, if he's going to be throwing interceptions, let's just run the ball from now on. So that's what they do. Unfortunately, it's another holding penalty on Cordell Volson. Inopportune time, because it looked like they were going to, actually no, it didn't matter anyway, because they lost yards on 3rd and 2. It was going to be a punt anyway, but Volson got a couple penalties for holding. There was another holding penalty later we'll get to, but mostly clean for the Bengals, but we did see a couple holding penalties. No penalties on the rookie, Amari Mims, though, so that was good. But Bengals punted away. This is where Rico punts it, a 50-yard punt to the Carolina 7. No return or 1-yard return. Dejon Anthony gets the tackle that time on the punt return. So great job for the Bengals, pinning Carolina to their 8-yard line. They had another drop over the short middle to Jonathan Mingo. That kind of shot themselves in the foot. They couldn't complete the next 2 passes. They had to punt back to the Bengals. So Bengals, they got the drive again and more runs. I think after that interception, I don't know if Joe Burrow threw another pass. I think Zach Taylor decided to take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands completely. No more passing. And they just ran and ran. They had Cody Ford, an extra offensive lineman, in there as the 6th offensive lineman. And they knew at this point, Panthers don't have their starting linebackers anymore. They don't have very good defensive line. Let's just run the ball straight over top of these guys. They ended up getting stopped eventually, but they kicked a field goal, 46-yard field goal with 1:15 left in the game to put them back up 34-24. Panthers had no timeouts left. They're down by 10, 1:15 left. They kind of gave a half-hearted attempt. They picked up a few yards, but they didn't really seem that interested in scoring a touchdown. I mean, crazier things have happened before, but it looked like the Panthers had pretty much resigned to losing the game. And actually, if I go back to that previous drive, the Bengals on the field goal drive, one of the big plays was they had a 3rd and 4 from the Panthers' 31-yard line. And very critical moment in the game. If the Panthers can force a long field goal or a stop, that would be a big play. But 3rd and 4, they're able to get the Panthers' defensive tackle to jump offside with a hard count from Joe Burrow. They kind of run the clock down, and then he gives a hard hut and gets them to jump. Mental mistake. Lots of mistakes cost the Panthers the game, but in that situation, cost the team a chance to, come back. So that let the Bengals extend their lead to 10 instead of keeping it a 1-score game. And the Panthers were really deflated after that moment, and they didn't really try very hard on their own possession. Bengals are able to hold on for the 10-point victory. It wasn't a complete walk in the park. They did enough to get the job done. We saw a lot of people making good plays. Cam Taylor-Britt, obviously some things that he can improve on, but other than that, lots of signs of life for this team. After the game, I think everybody was just relieved. They said, they didn't give themselves any other option. They couldn't allow themselves to go 0-4, couldn't happen, so they took care of business, and now they have a big opponent in the Baltimore Ravens coming to Cincinnati. So that's going to be a big matchup because the Ravens just decimated the Bills on Sunday Night Football. So the Ravens and Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and all those guys are going to be a challenge on a whole other magnitude than this Carolina Panthers team. But for right now, let's just savor the victory. Doesn't matter who it came against, just the fact that they got a W in the NFL. That's hard enough. So we just have to be happy with that much. But there were a lot of positive things to be said after the game. Obviously, there was questions about Cam Taylor-Britt because normally the Bengals don't rotate defensive backs. So the fact that he was in and out of the lineup, they were like, what was up with that? And so Zach Taylor said that about Cam Taylor-Britt, said that game was not up to his standard. And I'm sure that he'll talk about it with the reporters during the week, but he's a guy that we really lean on to be a foundational piece for our defense, and it certainly wasn't his best game, and we expect more from him going forward, and that wasn't up to his standard, but I'm excited to see how he responds. I'm excited to see, too, because I don't know what happened. It was kind of a weird outlier, like worst game of his career by far. Like I said, he gave up a touchdown, 85 yards receiving. Not that Pro Football Focus matters, but they gave him a 28 out of 100 grade. So if you're anywhere below 50, that's not good. So getting a 28 in a game, something, I don't know if he was injured or sick or had some kind of a personal thing going on where his mind wasn't on the game, but you can't play like that. So if he continues to have games like that, we're going to see a lot more DJ Turner. So I don't know what was up. Maybe he was, too excited about that one interception he had against the Chiefs and kind of reading his own quotes and reading social media and people saying how awesome he was or something, but he needs to get his mind focused on the next game. So hopefully he can have a bounce back game because they're going to need him throughout the stretch. They don't have any, I don't want to see Josh Newton out there taking starting snaps. He's not going to be the answer. We need Cam Taylor-Britt to play up to his potential. So whatever was going on, maybe we can just chalk it up to a bad game and we'll see better performances from here on out. I know Coach Lou, after the game, he said Cam Taylor-Britt came up to him and told him that was never going to happen again. And Coach Lou said he's confident that Cam will make the corrections so it won't happen again. And I'm sure it won't happen again because if it does, like I said, he's not going to be playing. So they're going to solve it one way or the other. Either he figures it out and it never doesn't happen again, or he just won't play. So on a similar kind of note, not to anybody's surprise, the Bengals made a move at punter. Brad Robbins was eligible to come back from injured reserve. They initially activated him from the roster yesterday and then immediately waived him today. So that was not a big surprise there. But one thing that was kind of weird was KJ Henry, who had been on the practice squad. The Bengals picked him up off waivers from the Commanders. He's the defensive end. He played a little bit in one of the games, but he got signed off the practice squad by the Cowboys. So Micah Parsons for the Cowboys, he got injured with an ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a certain amount of time, so they probably need some edge rushers down in Dallas. They pluck him off of the Bengals practice squad, and I think KJ Henry probably would have been one of the prime candidates to fill that active roster spot that Brad Robbins was in. So I don't know what the team is going to do in terms of filling that. They're going to have an open spot on the roster for somebody. Hopefully it's a defensive tackle or somebody that can come in and play some defense because that's really what the Bengals need. I think they're set on offense. They could always use depth at offensive line or some other position. Not that there's really good players just walking around out there unsigned right now, but defense seems to be where they need the most help at the moment. So we'll keep an eye on that. But just overall, this game, it felt good to get a win. It felt good to get the monkey off the back. The relief that you can feel on Monday and the week after a win is so much better than stewing and ruminating and thinking about how could they lose the game to a team that they should have beaten. So if they had, this was not a story in the national news. Bengals beat the Panthers. It's kind of like a news story about water is wet. Like, yeah, everybody knew that the Bengals were going to beat the Panthers. It would have been more of a story if they hadn't beat the Panthers, honestly. If the Bengals had somehow lost, that would have been a big deal. But just the fact that the Bengals went in, they beat a team that was bad and they should have beaten, nobody cares except for Bengals fans. But I was excited about it because it was a victory. So whatever, we'll take them. We'll take a victory wherever we can get them. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate everyone who has subscribed, gives me a like, all that kind of stuff. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, things you want to add to the show to make it better, send me an email at bengalbitespodcast@gmail.com. Read it on the show. Take care, everyone out there. Stay safe, all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. There's a bit of a time capsule moment here. We can watch the vice presidential debate that's going to happen tonight. So that's exciting. If you're into politics, that's like a big game of politics. I don't know. But vice presidential debate, I'm sure there could be all kinds of quote-worthy headlines coming out of that one. So you can tune into that. But on the next episode, we'll have a preview of the Ravens game. Big game. First AFC North game for the Bengals this year. So that'll be a big one to preview. But until then, I'm going to leave you with a hoo-day and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.